All right, man, Lindsay's been killing it with that setup for me. I'm like, I'm ready to hear this. Let's do it. But it's so good to be with you all today to continue with this Distracted series. How many of you guys have been enjoying this series, right? Hasn't it been amazing? If you haven't been following with us, if you missed a couple of days, you can always go to our website to watch those videos or to download the podcast. After this Sunday, we have 2 more weeks of the Distracted series. You're not going to want to miss those messages. Pastor Ben's going to close out the series. Next week, he's going to talk about how we are distracted when we compare ourselves to others. When we compare ourselves to others, when we are trying to run our race, but we're too busy looking at everyone else's race. So don't miss out on that. But then on November 12th, it's a big day for our church. On that Sunday, we will be revealing our annual mission initiative called the Hope Project. And guys, with all that is going on in our city and in the world, hope seems to be fading. Hope seems to be fading. But God has positioned us, and we have the opportunity to bring hope to many people through practical means and the message of Jesus Christ. We want to declare through this Hope Project that we are not going to allow darkness and hopelessness win. We want to make ourselves available to have God use us in making a difference in the lives of others. And that's not just here in San Francisco, but we want that to be the case around the world. So through this Hope Project, we're going to extend our hand and bring hope to the Tenderloin, but we're also going to extend our hand to strategic cities and partnerships around the world. So make a note to be here on November 12th. But for today, again, I have the privilege of continuing with our Distracted series. Since Pastor Ben was going to be out, he gave me a topic that probably a lot of you don't struggle with, okay? So you can tune me out if this is not for you. My subject for today is on how some of us are distracted by technology. Well, only a few of us, right? So again, if this is not for you, if this is not a personal struggle, feel free to pull out your phone, check the scores, or just scroll through your news feed on Facebook or Instagram or your favorite app, whatever it is. But distracted by technology, though, that's a tough one, right? Especially in the tech capital of the world. And just a quick note, this is not going to be an emotional message if that's what you've come to expect from me. I said that in the first gathering, and I actually had a moment, and I'm like, so I might surprise you and me again. But this is a tough one here in this city. Many of you are involved in the process and work for the companies that are creating all of this amazing technology that the rest of us use on a daily basis. So from the jump, I want to say that technology is a good thing. It's a good thing. I want you and the companies that you work for to succeed and do well. I truly do. I'm not going to tell you to burn your phones, all right, or to donate them to me so that I can get the reimbursement or rebate, or to get rid of all forms of technological advancements, or that these billion-dollar companies, they are actually the devil in disguise. I'm not going to tell you that. No, I'm not trying to bring us back to the dark ages. Listen, I am grateful, super grateful for technology. Because of my iPhone and all of the apps that I get to download on it, I'm never lost, right? That's a good thing. I use it as a personal note taker. I have instant access to endless amounts of information on any subject when I need it. It has a great camera. Apple's going to be able to hire me to just do some commercials for them. It's super portable and convenient, and on and on and on we can go. And quick disclaimer, when I say technology, I'm not just referring to our phones. Although most of my examples and applications will be based on our phones, because statistically, it is the one item that we use the most, or it's the one item which causes the highest form of distraction because it is so portable. But technology, and you guys know this, technology could also refer to watching television, playing video games, being on our laptops, or anything else that you may use on a regular basis that distracts you from what's most important. But here's why we need to talk about technology in this distracted series. Very few of us can say that we are not distracted by technology. Very few of us. How many of you at one point or another have thought about making or actually made a drastic change in your use of technology because of its impact on your life? How many of you have made those drastic changes? Okay. How many of you have deleted your Facebook account, even for a brief period of time? I actually, one time had B change my password and not tell me what it was. That was a good one, actually. It lasted several months without checking. How many of you have thought about going to a flip phone? I did. Even if you haven't thought about taking drastic measures like those, our use and dependence on technology is so pervasive that hardly any of us can say that we are unscathed by some of its more negative effects. And here's just a few. We all know what it's like to have an important deadline looming on a project, but instead to be using that precious time watching random videos on YouTube, or reading every article on ESPN, or just aimlessly scrolling our newsfeed. William Penn wrote, "Time is what we want most, but what we use worst." Time is what we want most, but what we use worst. And technology just has a way of allowing us to easily fall into that trap. Here's another one. We have all felt the effects of technology on our relationships. Have you ever been frustrated with your spouse or friend because they are not listening to you? They're probably nodding your head, but they are not truly listening to you. They are too busy on their phones. But here's the thing, and I see some of you looking around. Don't look around. We can't just blame them. Yes, we are victims, but we are also culprits. If we, and I believe this would be a very interesting survey, if we were to ask our spouse or kids or friends or coworkers, my guess is that they would all say that we are on our phones or laptops more than we believe that we are. Their estimation of how much time we spend on our phones and technology or screens or whatever would be much higher than what we would say. I truly believe that. And I'm just going to share one more way that technology distracts us. It distracts us when we want it to distract us. It distracts us when we want it to distract us. Here's what I mean by that. Just because it's a planned distraction doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Many of us use technology for its numbing effect. For its numbing effect. We binge watch television series because we want to decompress and not feel. And not feel. And listen, to an extent, I truly believe that there is nothing wrong with that, but when it's the only way that we medicate our souls, we are missing out on a better solution. A better solution. So today, I want to take a slightly different approach than most people would expect in a message like this. And here's what I want to say. Technology is not the problem. We are the problem. Technology is not the problem. We are the problem. When relationships become too complicated and unenjoyable, we rather not connect with those around us and instead zone out on our screens. Technology did not make that decision for us. We made that decision. When productivity and our careers become all-consuming, we live our lives always connected to technology. And we can blame our devices or we can blame our companies, but it's our ambition on overdrive that doesn't allow us to unplug. When we feel the weight of the world on us, we just want to find relief and we want to decompress by watching the full season of This Is Us or whatever the show might be for you, rather than casting our burdens on Jesus, who promises to give us rest. Listen, I don't know if you might feel a little guilty. If you do, that's all right. We are in good company. I think this is something we all struggle with, or the majority of us struggle with. But what's the answer? What's the solution? I don't think it's drastic measures of getting a flip phone or deleting our social media accounts. Any of those types of approaches, I believe, fall short of addressing the actual problem. I believe that we need to continue to gain clarity around the phrase that we have been using throughout the series, and that means gaining clarity on what matters most. What matters most. The goal of my teaching today is not to get us from a negative to a zero-based baseline, to a zero baseline, but to get us producing on the positive side. It's not simply to get us to stop doing what we must not do, but to get us to start doing what we should do. And in order for that to happen, we need to know what the vision for our life is. And we need to ask the question, is my current use of technology supporting or conflicting with that vision? We need to ask that question. Is my current use of technology supporting or conflicting with the vision for my life? I believe we need to ask that question with anything that we do in our life, with anyone that we have in our life, not just technology. And again, hear this clearly. This is not us talking about bad things. Our problem with technology and many other things, as we will see in a moment, is that we let relatively good things derail us from what matters most. And we need to figure out at what point does a good thing become a bad thing. Because too much of anything good or the misuse of something good can become distracting or detrimental to our own good, to our own benefit. So I want us to dive into that idea a bit more by turning to our Bibles, and we're going to be reading from Luke chapter 10. We're going to read the story about Martha and Mary in verses 38 through 42. And if you will, please stand as we read God's word this morning. It's also going to be on the screen. Luke chapter 10, 38. And it reads, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. You may be seated. I pray that God's word will speak to us. You know, there's actually not much in the Bible about technology, but this is the next best thing. So we're going to cover this passage. It's really good, actually. I love this story. Martha is well-meaning. She is a great person. She invites Jesus and his disciples over for dinner. She has the gift of hospitality, but she also has the gift of going totally psycho whenever guests are coming over. It's confession time now. How many of you have that gift, right? People are coming over, you are just going ballistic. This is how you know when you have that gift. You are running around trying to get things ready, but no one else in your family or home is moving fast enough. And so you become the drill sergeant. And that's what Martha's doing here. In this story, we see Martha is about to lose it because while she is getting things done in the kitchen where things need to get done, her sister Mary is just sitting by Jesus' feet, listening to him teach. The good life, right? She just wants to walk by and kick her, right? But now in this room, we have Marys and Marthas alike, male and female alike. How many of you identify with Martha? You feel her pain and frustration. It's okay if you're, all right. Any Marys? That's me. I'm going to be chilling and hearing Jesus teach. But here's what I want to focus in on. In verse 40, it says that Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And one translation, the ESV, actually says that she was distracted. Hear this. She was distracted with much serving. Serving. That was her distraction, serving. But guys, get this, and most of us know this. Serving is so important in our faith journey. Jesus modeled serving for us by washing his disciples' feet. And after he humbly loved them and served them in this way, he said to his disciples, and in turn he tells us, follow my example. Follow my example. He says, I'm going to serve you guys right now, and I want you to follow my example. He also said that he came to serve and not to be served. Serving is super important in our spiritual life. And so when I frame serving in that way, it's hard to imagine how serving could ever become a distraction. It's hard to imagine that serving could ever become a distraction, but it was. And it still can be when it keeps us from what matters most. And if serving can be a distraction, definitely technology can be a distraction. Have you ever considered, though, and these are good things we're talking about, have you ever considered that even a good thing can become a bad thing in our lives? I want to bring that up again. The reality is that anything can become an idol in our lives, meaning something that we worship and make the primary focus of our lives. Something or even someone becomes an idol when it becomes the ultimate thing, when we can't live without it, when it's what we only think about and focus on. And the problem is that there is only one that is ultimate. There is only one that should hold that place in our lives, and that is God. When pursuing, hear this, when pursuing something good becomes a priority over pursuing the one who is good, we create an idol that can't save us or help us, and that ultimately leads us on a path away from God. Now, I don't think that any of us are actually bowing down and worshiping our phones when we get home. That's not what we're talking about here. But here's my question. Is it keeping us from living the life that God intended us to live? Is it keeping us from living the life that God intended us to live? I mentioned earlier that we should gain clarity around the vision for our lives. And just to bring this home and to be brief with it, Jesus in the scriptures make clear that there is no greater ambition or pursuit that we can have than to love God and to love others. Right? He summarized it this way. He says that when he was asked, what is the greatest commandment? The greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And a second is equally like it, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. There's no greater ambition. There's no greater pursuit. And in verse 42, he's getting to that idea. Jesus says that few things are needed. Few things are needed. In fact, only one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen what is better. Mary, amongst the myriad of options, whether to serve in the kitchen or to hear Jesus teach, she has chosen what is better. And we need to learn to rank file the things in our lives. We need to learn what comes first, what's most important, and then what comes next, and what comes so on and so forth. Everything is not equally important. Everything is not equally important. God has established an order for us, and that is God and people. Everything else comes after that. And even if you want to break down the people part, yes, God is first, but then our spouse, then our children, then our friends and neighbors, and then our career. So when you're forced to make a decision, what is the rank that you have upon the place, upon the people in your life and the things in your life? What's the rank? In this story, connecting with God became subordinate to serving. But that should never be the case. Should never be the case. God and people should always be first. God and people should always be first. So here's the question based on that idea. If that is the case, that God and people should always be first, what does that mean for how we use technology when we are around people? Do we need to reconsider how we use technology around the people that God has called us to connect with and to love? What does that mean for how we use technology in the morning when we want to connect with God? What does that mean for how we use technology late at night, right before we're about to go to bed, if that's the time that you use to connect with God? Do we need to reconsider our use? Martha was busy serving. And many of us can relate to Martha because we constantly need to be doing something. That's not me, but that's a lot of you. I like to take naps. My wife doesn't let me take a nap because she needs to be. No, this is not about you. It's personalities. I think there's certain things how God wired us, but we need to be careful and mindful of how we are wired. Martha was busy serving. She couldn't just sit and listen to Jesus when things needed to get done in the kitchen. No, things need to get done. Many of us can't stand at a grocery line without pulling out our phones. That's more important or more interesting than talking to the person in front of us or behind us. Now, I'm not going to talk to the person in front of us or behind us because I'm just an introvert and I'm awkward, but some of you can do that. We need to be constantly active. Here's the thing, activity is good, but if we never take the time to pause, between our activity, then we need to be aware of what that's going to lead to. If we never pause, if we never take a break, if we never take a rest or a Sabbath, we need to be aware of what that's going to lead to. A few months ago, this is super practical, but a few months ago, I got to hear a talk by Juliet Funt. She created something called White Space at Work. You can look it up. It's great material. The idea is that we have greater potential to produce creative and meaningful work when we free ourselves from busyness. We have greater potential to produce creative and meaningful work when we free ourselves from busyness. She said, you can categorize our culture, both our social culture, our work culture, as giving 100% exertion but 0% thoughtfulness. 100% exertion, we are constantly busy, but we're not pausing to take a break, to think, to reflect. And she says that's a risk. It's not a badge of honor, that's a risk. And what drives us to keep on working and never unplugging are 4 core forces that businesses in our society value. These are 4 core elements. Here they are. They are drive, excellence, information, and activity. Drive, excellence, information, and activity. And no one here would argue that these things are assets in our lives and in the workplace. But it's possible, it's absolutely possible for all 4 of these to distract us, these values to distract us and cause us to be on technology more than we need to, especially activity. And when these values are taken to an extreme, it's dangerous and they become corrupted. And here's how they become corrupted. She says, drive, when taken to an extreme, becomes overdrive. Excellence becomes perfection. Information becomes information overload. And activity becomes frenzy. Now, we would all say that the words on the left are all good, but how effective are you on the right side of that scale? How effective are you on the right side of that scale? In verse 41, Jesus tells Martha that she is worried and upset about many things. Worried and upset about many things. And so many connections can be made with this statement from Jesus and the impact that technology has on us. When we are constantly busy and never allow ourselves to pause or to be bored, the smallest thing can worry or upset us. The smallest thing. And let me just share a personal illustration. In the past, checking my email during certain seasons was the most anxiety-fueling action that I would do throughout the day. Just checking it on my phone. And it wouldn't have been if I checked it once a day like I checked the mail at my house, right? I'm never nervous about checking the mail at my house. But because of my need to be constantly active and producing, engaging where I stood, that's not what I was doing. I was checking it every 10 minutes to see if anything new came in. And even when a bad email didn't come in, the simplest thing would create a small spark of anxiety within me. Because it was just a habit to pull it out and check it. And I truly believe we have good intentions to be excellent. We have good intentions to be driven, to be active, to get all the information that we need. But we take it overboard. We take it to an extreme. And I believe that some of us are dealing with anxiety And I know that that's not the case. This is not the case for everyone. But some of us are dealing with anxiety because we never put our work down. We never take a break from it because of technology, because it's always with us. Here's another thing about technology, and I believe this is one of the biggest ones. One of the biggest complaints against technology is that it doesn't allow us to be present. It doesn't allow us to be present. Last weekend, I was at a wedding where the bride and the groom respectfully requested that all guests not take pictures or record video during the ceremony. And then that was the first time I had been a part of a wedding like that. But they just wanted people to be present with them and enjoy the moment. It's hard to be present and to be on our phones. Even right now, if we are on our phones, if we're not taking notes, but if we're doing something, it's hard to listen to what is going on and allow it to resonate deep within you if we're distracted. It's a challenge. I recently learned another word for being present, and that is attentiveness. Attentiveness. My kids are learning because of their mom, she does a great job with this, they're learning a different virtue every week, and they work on it every week. A few weeks ago, it was attentiveness, and I love this, and this is the definition that they got. Attentiveness means to watch and listen carefully. To watch and listen carefully, so as not to distract or be distracted. It's the act of being present and not allowing ourselves to get distracted or to be a distraction. Let me just give you a simple example of this. How many of you are distracted by TVs at a restaurant? Like you go with someone or a group of people and there's a TV behind them, you're just looking at the TV more than you're looking at them. And it's hard to listen carefully and be attentive in those moments. But that's what I believe we need to do to truly connect with people. And even more important, to connect with God. And so the spiritual disciplines are our way of being attentive with God. The spiritual disciplines. And here's the thing that we need to understand. Again, I want to make this clear. The issue is not whether we engage with social media or other forms of technology from time to time. That is not the issue. But if it keeps us from engaging our Creator and the most important people in our lives, then that's a problem. That's a problem. If we can spend hours on social media or watching videos or shows, but can't invest 15 life-giving minutes reading the scriptures and talking to God, then there's an imbalance there that needs correcting. We must be present. And here's the other thing that we need to understand about all of this. You can't multitask. Let's stop fooling ourselves. You can't be on the phone and hear what I am saying. Truly hear what I am saying. You can't be on your phone and hear your child, your spouse, or your friend. And if I'm totally honest, I personally, for me, I can't be present or attentive if I have too much on my mind. If I have too much on my mind, and this is where it hit me in the last service. There have been times that I'm at the dinner table and Honor is saying something to me and I don't hear him. I don't hear him. And it's not that I have my phone out. I just have too much on my mind because I left the office and I kept checking my email and doing work on the way home. And so for the past year, I've been kind of writing out these few declarations that I want to say to myself every day because I want them to be true of me every day. And this is one of them that kind of falls in line with this idea that we're talking about. I wrote, and I say to myself, I'm present and in the moment, whether I'm with family, others, or God. I'm present and in the moment. I only allow myself to be in my head when I'm alone. I'm in my head a lot, and so I need to plan those times out. So what that means for me is that as I'm walking the 20 minutes that it takes for me to get here to my house, I'm not on my phone still working. But I am decompressing with my phone put away so that I can be ready to engage my family as soon as I step foot in that door. I don't know what it is for you, but we need to be present. And we need to make people aware in a nice way when they're not present with us. We can't get attitudes, we can't get rude, but we need to be present. And what I love about what we're talking about today is that Jesus modeled this for us. He chose not to stay at a distance, but to truly be present. I want you to check out this quote by Tim Keller. Tim Keller writes, "As great as it is, God did not simply send us the Bible, a message through the communication medium of writing. If that was all he could do for us, salvation would ultimately be in our hands. It would have been up to us to follow his instructions. But instead, God also came himself in the flesh to be fully present to us in Jesus Christ. It is only through his being fully present with us that we could be saved by grace." And if you've never heard that before, I want you to hear that loud and clear, that Jesus Christ came to redeem us, to rescue us by being present with us, by becoming one of us, coming in the flesh. And I want us to commit to be present with God and others as Christ has been present with us. Because in actuality, that is what matters most. That is what matters most. All right. I want to get into some practical application now, okay? So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Super practical stuff, okay? So for starters, and I'm going to try to run through this pretty quickly. For starters, it's important to start with having a dedicated time most days of the week that you will spend time with God. You need to block out that time in advance. If you take Caltrain or whatever and you make that your time, make that your time. And it doesn't have to be an hour. Block out 15 minutes where you will spend reading a chapter or two in the Bible. And if you don't know where to start with the book of Luke or John. Those are probably my two favorite recommendations as far as for people who are just starting out reading the Bible. Read the book of Luke or John. And then here's the other thing you want to do. Not just read the Bible, but also you want to spend about 5 minutes talking to God, praying. I can't tell you what to say in those moments, but a lot can be said in 5 minutes. But here's the goal that I have whenever I come to God in prayer. It's more of the position of my heart. There's two things that I want to do when I come to God, and that is I want to make him first. There are loves, different desires that I have in my heart, and I always want God to be the first and primary desire, primary love in my life. So I want to make him first. But the second thing that I want to do is that I want to express to him and remind myself of my utter dependence on him. And then Jesus, in the Lord's Prayer, he says, give us this day our daily bread. And many of us don't pray that because we feel like we can provide for ourselves. But during those moments of prayer, I want to express to God, I need you. For everything that I'm going to do today, I need you. And I need you to lead me. Jesus is Lord and Savior, and so I want to put him first, and I want to be utterly dependent on him. So that's first and foremost. Now let me get into some practical tips on how we can keep technology in its proper place. Now this isn't exhaustive, but I'm going to share with you some things that have helped me. Okay, the key to all of this is intentionality. Intentionality. You can't just say, I want to do better with technology. No. That's not going to be helpful at all. Our default mode will always steer us in the wrong direction. I believe that technology so easily distracts us because those who create it understand human nature. Okay? They understand that we don't want a lot of steps in the process. If it takes a lot of effort, we won't do it. So as a hack, to keep me and to keep us from getting distracted, we need to add steps to the process. We need to make it a little bit more complicated to access in order for us to not be distracted by it. And let me give you some examples of what I've done. Get rid of the time and energy killers on your mobile device. Get rid of the time and energy and connection killers on your phone. Here's some of them. Infinity apps. Infinity apps. This is any app that has an endless feed, an endless news feed. So Facebook, Instagram, and again, this is not speaking negatively about those companies, about those apps. Don't close your accounts because I think they are great for helping you stay connected with many people that otherwise you wouldn't connect with. But anything that just kind of goes, and you could just keep going and going, oh man, what a time waster, right? Find designated times and places for you to post and connect on those social media outlets. All right, let me keep going. Email. Email. Is it that important for you to have immediate access to your email? That's for you to decide. I don't think so, in most cases. And so, get rid of your email from your phone. Establish with your coworkers that if they need to reach you immediately, that they can call or text you. It will save you so much emotional energy and brain space if you don't have email on your phone. And here's another thing. For productivity purposes, we shouldn't have our emails open all the time on our laptops when we are at work. Because, studies have shown that it takes too much time and energy to go back and forth from working on a project to checking your email, responding to that email, and going back. The energy that it takes to get started again, it's just a time killer, an energy killer. So again, find designated times throughout your week or day that you will check email. Web browser, this one was a big one for me, a key one for me on my phone. Until I got rid of Safari, I was never really free from Facebook. Even though I deleted the app, I would just log on using Safari. So there's a way, even though you hold it down and everything lights up and starts to shake and there's X's, there's none on Safari, there's a way where you can get rid of it. Talk to me afterwards and I'll show you the trick. All right. Here's some more. Any other app that you use to pass your time, like it just entertains you, get rid of it, okay? For me, it was ESPN and Mint. How many of you guys know Mint? Okay. The three accountants in the room. For starters, ESPN, I could read a lot of articles on ESPN, and if I got really bored, I would even get into golf and stuff like that. But sorry if you like golf. And the other one was Mint. Mint became a daily thing for me. And my financial portfolio is not doing that much activity on a daily basis for me to be checking it. But I just enjoyed it. So when I was at the grocery line, I would check Mint and pass the time. So it's gone, and now I just check it like once a week at home because it is super helpful for me to keep track of everything. All right, next one, games, right? Get rid of Candy Crush, right, before it crushes you. It's a simple... this isn't much of a distraction for me, even though it has been in the past, but I mention it for some of you, and for those of you that have kids. And this goes for phone and even devices or game consoles that we have at home. For those of you that play games a lot, or if you have kids, have an allotment of time that you or your kids will play. Just have it pre-designated. This is what I will play, or this is what you guys can play. My kids get an hour on Saturday and Sunday, and that's it. And that doesn't mean they don't use it any other time, but that's what we've, in essence, allotted to them. And so they know not to further ask or to, and again, it just makes it clear. This is the rule in our house. This is the rule that I live by, having a lot of time that you get to play or that your kids get to play. Lastly, take a break. Oh, I need to finish up. Take a break from technology altogether. Andy Crouch in TechWise Family, he writes this, and then I'm going to wrap up. He writes, we are designed for a rhythm of work and rest. We are designed for a rhythm of work and rest, not just 100% exertion. So for 1 hour a day, usually during dinner time, meal time, 1 day a week, and 1 week a year, we turn off our devices and worship, feast, play, and rest together. That's so good. 1 hour a day, and then it's easy to remember. 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, the Sabbath, and 1 week a year of vacation. Just unplug. Unplug. Life-giving. Life-giving. Andy Crouch, this book is such a great book. I recommend it to all of you. It's called Tech-Wise Family, but I think it's super helpful to everyone. Make a note, February 10th, we're going to do an event for families. We want to help families kind of navigate the uncharted waters of how to set healthy boundaries in the home regarding technology. At that event, we're going to give every family a copy of the book. But even if you don't have kids, this is going to be extremely helpful. We're actually going to do a breakout specifically for singles or empty nesters. So it's going to be like a 2-hour event on the Saturday, February 10th, because we want to continue this conversation. Right? This is somewhat of a new phenomenon, even though human nature that's always been around, right? We've always tried to be independent from God. We've always managed our relationships poorly. But the distraction that, as we're seeing it today, this is somewhat new. I think this year, iPhone celebrated, 10 years, right? We're still trying to figure it out, so we want to continue to have conversations. But here's the thing, guys. Do something, act. If technology is a distraction for you or for your household, have a plan. Put a plan in place today, this week, okay? Because what's most important is our connection with God and people. And we don't want to miss out on being present and having that time to connect with people. Let me pray for us. God, we thank you for your goodness, God. We thank you that even through this kind of modern distraction or thing that we are talking through, God, your word can speak to us. And God, as I mentioned, we are all affected by it. And I just pray that you will guide us, give us wisdom, give us strength, give us courage to act upon it. I pray, God, that we will highly value, God, the greatest commandment that you gave us, which is to love you with all of our heart, soul, strength, and mind, and to love others as ourselves, to love our neighbors, God. And I pray that those will be the primary values that we seek to accomplish and to aim for in our daily living, God. I pray that you will bless us in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Guys, if you will, please stand as the band leads us. This is a new song, but I believe it speaks clearly and powerfully into what we are talking about today.